All right, so we're getting down there. Just a few more types to talk about here. And so the next one would be exceptive propositions. And these are sentences like all except SRP and all but SRP. And there's really, other than the difference of the word except versus but, the meanings are exactly the same in both cases. So let's say I told you that all cats except tigers are friendly animals. All cats except tigers are friendly animals. Now, if you reflect on that a little bit, you can realize that really there are two things being asserted here, right? First of all, it's certainly saying something nice about cats other than tigers, right, that they're friendly. And then, of course, it's taking its time to also say something not so nice about the tigers. Apparently, they're not friendly. So hopefully we can recognize at the outset that we're going to need, or it requires, two sentences in order to translate this one correctly. And so what we would come up with, I hope, is we'd say, okay, first of all cats, sorry, we'll do that secondly. No tigers are friendly animals, right? That's certainly what it's asserting. No tigers are friendly animals. And then it's also saying something nice about the cats. All cats that are non-tigers are friendly animals. So it's saying both of those things, right? Again, remember that is true in many of these cases, and so do understand that when you're looking at the answer key or working through Apply on these, there can be multiple correct answers. If instead we said, for example, all tigers are unfriendly animals, by obversion, that would mean the same thing. So recognize that. And then so in the second sentence, though, all cats that are non-tigers, all cats that other than tigers would work, are friendly animals, that would work as well. So there's some options here. But do remember that when you see all except, you're going to need two sentences to capture the meaning of that sentence. So once again, why don't you try one? So here's an example. All employees but teachers can receive bonuses. So what I invite you to do is, again, hit pause on the video and really just use this first example here as a model. See if you can sort of follow that as a model to come up with the correct translation here for this second one. It should really follow along the same lines or the same way. Again, the word except and but are essentially interchangeable here. So I'll assume at this point that you've already hit pause, and I'll show you now how you can come up with the correct answer. So what this is really saying is, right, we can begin with the no sentence. No teachers are employees who can receive bonuses, or no teachers are employees who are able to receive bonuses, for example, would be a slight variation there. And then the second sentence would be the A-type statement. All employees other than teachers, all non-teacher employees would be another option there. But anyway, all employees other than teachers are employees who can receive bonuses. Okay. So what you want to notice here is we got the same predicate term in each of these, right? As we did in the first example, friendly animals and then friendly animals, employees who can receive bonuses and employees who can receive bonuses there as well. But hopefully, if you just have these as good examples as a model, you'll be able to do that kind of translation on the exam should it occur. All right. So finally, push the button there one more time, we have no except. So we're just talking about all except. No except gets dealt with differently. Let's say I told you, no colleges except EVCC are community colleges located in Everett, right? Now, I don't know that you'd express yourself that way, and of course you picked up on today's theme, which was many multiple ways of how not to improve our writing skills, right? We're not out here today to improve our writing skills. We're simply focused on trying to get these sentences to fit into standard form, and then we can go to town with Venn diagrams on them or the square of opposition and whatnot. At any rate, if you were to see this sentence, which is not the clearest sentence, I wonder what you would sort of think of that as meaning, or how you would sort of translate it, at least initially in your own mind. For me, when I think of no colleges except Everett Community College are community colleges located in Everett, essentially what I hear that saying is the only community college located in Everett is EVCC. Right? No except, then, what I'd recommend is you turn it into its equivalent, the only statement. Once you get it into the only, or that form, I'm hoping that's fairly easy to translate, as we talked about in the last video, right? The only becomes all, and then everything else just follows out the way it's in the order it's written. So we would end up with here, all community colleges located in Everett are colleges identical to EVCC, right? We wouldn't say are EVCCs, that doesn't make sense. So here, because one of our two terms is a unique thing, in this case, Everett Community College, we would say are colleges identical to EVCC. That's what I recommend. When you see no except, first of all, recognize that's not all except. No except, turn it into the only, and then you can hopefully come up with the easy to translate a statement there. All right, so that really takes us through all these different ways that we might encounter sentences that are not in standard form, but that can be turned into standard form categorical propositions. And what I'm providing for you here on this slide is like an initial slide or list of a checklist. Before you get started, what are you going to be doing here to come up with that appropriate translation? So the first thing you want to do is when you read the sentence, you want to look for one of the key words in that translation hints box that's at the end of section 3.6, right? So maybe you'll see the word when in the sentence. Maybe you'll see few or except, or more specifically no except or all except, etc. You'll see one of those important words, and that'll hopefully give you some guidance as to how to translate it correctly. Also, make sure the required words are at the beginning of the sentence before you translate, right? So if the word if, for example, is in the middle of the sentence, put it to the beginning with whatever followed it before you translate, as I've been reiterating here in these videos. Now, what will happen sometimes is that there may be no keywords in the sentence at all, right? You won't see any of the words that's in that box at the end of 3.6. And in that case, what you need to do to start is simply ask yourself which quantifier should be used to translate the sentence while preserving the meaning, right? So you know that the sentence is going to begin with all, no, or some, and you want to begin that way. Okay, so having said all that, let's go ahead and look at problem number 2 here. Before actually I get to that, I'm just remembering that I told you, oh, there's a problem in the translation hints box with regard to only and the only. And so since, hopefully we're looking at that page now of the book, just note in that translation hints box, the problem is this. On the left, you see the word only listed. And on the right, it says use all. Then you drop down one more item there on that list of the keywords to be eliminated, and you see the only there as well. And on the right-hand side, what's the translation hint? It's to use all. So the problem is that these directions or instructions are too broad, because yes, with only or the only, you're going to use all in both cases. But of course, you have to remember to flip the terms if you're dealing with only, and don't flip the terms if you're dealing with the only. So you need to be very careful here about following that additional direction when you do only or the only. Okay, at any rate. Having said that, let's go ahead and look at the first set of exercises from 3.6, specifically problem number 2, which says, temporary workers are not eligible for fringe benefits. Okay? Temporary workers are not eligible for fringe benefits. And so we can begin, just as it says here, to look for one of the key words there. But there aren't any key words. So that actually eliminates both the first and second bullet point here. And so on this one, we're quickly going to come to the question of, well, are there any keywords in the sentence? Back up. What is the quantifier we should use? We already know there aren't any keywords in that sentence that the translation hints box talks about. So which quantifier do we want to use? All, no, or some? And if you want to pause for a moment again and try to work this one out, I'll put the answer here on the screen in just a second, right? But you can hit pause here and I'll write that on the screen. All right, so if you're back from pausing and trying that one, number 2, temporary workers are not eligible for fringe benefits, hopefully you came up with no temporary workers are people eligible for fringe benefits. This is, hopefully most likely the one you've come up with. Notice here that we have people eligible for fringe benefits we need to have a noun. You can't say no temporary workers are eligible for fringe benefits. Then we wouldn't have a noun in the predicate term, wouldn't be able to convert it back and forth, in other words. Also, just note here, we've got the no sentence. There is a temptation on this one to write all, maybe I'll do a different color. All temporary workers are people, well, are not, right? This is the one of the ones where you could be tempted to write all are not. All temporary workers are not people eligible for fringe benefits. And of course, as I've said, you definitely don't want to write that. That would be not in standard form. So beware of the dreaded all are not. And more to the point here, let me bring back slides. So what we want to do here is, this is a checklist to follow after you've done a translation, right? If you do a translation on the exam and then you want to make sure you've done it correctly, before you go on to the next one, definitely follow this checklist. First of all, make sure you have one of our 3 quantifiers beginning of the sentence, okay? Secondly, make sure you have one of the 2 copulas in the sentence. In other words, the word are or not. Make sure you could convert the sentence and have it still make sense. That is, could you still switch it and have it still make sense? That will ensure that you have a noun in your predicate. And make sure you have eliminated all the keywords in the tan box at the end of the section, right? So in other words, if the original sentence had the word if in it, the word if should not appear in your final product, so to speak. And finally, always, oh, not quite finally. One more after this. But don't use identical to when not needed, right? Don't go overboard with using identical to. Only use it when it's required. And now, really finally, make sure your new sentence means the same thing as the old one. So just reread the sentence. Make sure it's really capturing the meaning, all of the meaning of the original sentence before you move on to another translation. So with that in mind, right, let's just apply that to this sentence here. We do have a quantifier here beginning it, so that's good. It's all, no, or some. We have the copula are. We could convert it. We could switch it back and forth and have it still make sense, thanks to the fact that we have that word people in there. This one, of course, didn't have any keywords originally, and so we don't have to worry about eliminating them here. Also, we didn't use identical to at all, so we don't have to worry about that. And yes, it does certainly mean the same thing as the original sentence. Temporary workers are ineligible for fringe benefits. Means the same thing as this right here. So we did a good job. And so we have one more thing to look at here in the next video. It's going to be the second exercise set from this section.